We're live, I guess. Didn't do the count.
All right, welcome in everybody to Biscuits and SEC Live. This is our 75th show, so thank you all for joining us. Feels kind of wild to say our 75th, but we keep hitting milestones one by one. And as you can see, we are, just a well-oiled machine as we went live there without the intro and just kind of had a couple seconds of dead air to start the show. So we're back and better than ever. We're the number one podcast for people who love biscuits in the SEC, and that is according to Time Magazine. So if you're here, then you are one of those people that love the SEC and love biscuits. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate y'all. Let's see. We've got about as jam-packed of a show as we can this time of year, at the beginning of March. We're going to talk about the NCAA kind of making some moves. So to shout out the newsletter below, biscuitsandsec.com/newsletter. Please sign up. It is free. That was sort of the focal point of the newsletter this morning, was some goings on around the NCAA that we'll get into. 2014 college football playoff is going to be a point of discussion, I think, a lot of the offseason, but just wanted to chat about it because Josh Heupel, an interview with Chris Lowe, who does a fantastic job now for On 3, as it feels like everybody's kind of working for them these days. But Chris Lowe, the man, been in the business forever, was talking with Heupel, and Heupel came out in favor of the 2014 model. So wanted to touch on that. And then we'll talk a little bit about SEC hoops. Neither of us are experts on that front. However, the SEC tournament starts a week from today. So this weekend, Saturday, are the last regular season games. So want to touch on that a little bit. And, of course, we've got our Biscuit of the Week and our Mike Leach Coach of the Week. So without further ado, Boss Man, how are you doing?
Doing good. It is good to be here. We got some, interesting topics tonight, some off-season topics, but ones that are certainly worth discussion and things that we can dive into a little bit deeper and go beyond the headlines. But, doing well and just looking forward to talking some ball tonight.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into it. And Rick, just to give you a shout out, you're a biscuit machine. This guy sends us biscuits all the time. We love it. We did receive it. It is not on the show tonight, so we'll be sure to feature it next week. But thank you again for sending that our way. So topics for tonight. Like I said, I kind of laid, we kind of laid most of this out in our newsletter this morning. But there's some stuff that the NCAA has been saying over the last week. So before we get into the kind of potential for the NCAA to actually start growing teeth and enforcing some things like they're claiming they want to do, I did want to just first bring up, seems like the targeting rule is changing. Did you see this news that they are no longer going to enforce the first half sitting out if you are flagged in the second half of a game?
I did. I saw that, and I think it's a good step in the right direction for the whole targeting rule, which has been controversial since it became a rule. I don't know how long we're going back now. What, like 8-10 years now? Maybe not that long, but it feels like it's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So since that rule was implemented, it has been controversial, and especially like the sitting out, the first half of the next games, it has been very controversial. So that was my first takeaway. This was a step in the right direction. But I want to step back here for a second and just think about this. I wrote this down as I was, thinking about the show tonight and our topics. And can we just all acknowledge, like, what is targeting? What the hell is targeting? We are like taking away. Okay, we're like nipping away at this rule, but nobody even knows what targeting is anymore. We talk about this every year. This has been going on for year after year after year now, where it's like, what is targeting? And you'll see one play 1 week where it's like obvious targeting doesn't get called. Very, very similar situation the next week. Targeting does get called. So, like, this is a very subjective rule that is essentially up to the referees in the moment. And there's a couple criteria that the NCAA stipulates that, like, what you're looking for, right? Like crown of the helmet, defenseless receiver, those sorts of things. But we see it get called sometimes, and we don't see it get called other times. And I really think that we have to really hone in on what exactly is targeting, and have referees, give them very specific criteria. Because right now it seems like the criteria is too wide open. It's too subjective for the referees. And so that's where I want to see us get to, is back to that. And then to go a step further, I think, again, this is a step in the right direction, but I think we got to go further. We got to first figure out what targeting is. Like, let's actually, figure that out. And then second, I think that the penalties are still a little bit too harsh. I mean, we're getting better, but to me, this is a rough sport. We know it's a rough sport, and I know that we want to balance that with, kids getting injured and head injuries and everything we know about that with science and everything now as to what we're being shown with head injuries. But it's a rough sport, and we got to let the kids play at some point. And so I think that maybe parsing the penalties down, or bringing the penalties back to maybe like, got to sit out a quarter. Okay. It's not a series. It's not 2 series or something. Like, hey, that's tough enough. But losing, for instance, let's put Caleb Downs out there, right? Ohio State loses Caleb Downs to a targeting penalty for the rest of the game, or for the first half of the next game. That hurts, right? I think even losing that guy for a quarter can change a game, right? So it still hurts if you take it back and say, okay, targeting, 15-yard penalty plus this kid is out for a quarter. But all that to say, this is a step in the right direction, and we're starting to, go the right direction, I think, with the targeting rule. Hopefully more is done.
Yeah, that's a great point, because you're spot on. So I'm in full agreement there that this is a step in the right direction. Now, it was always insane to have a player sit out the first half of a game that's taking place a week from now if they got flagged for targeting in the second half of a game. But as you said, there's more to be done. And I would even say, outside of the what is targeting debate, which is just a total mess, because I agree with you. I mean, as an A&M fan, I can think of plenty of examples where I get angry on a Saturday because A&M gets called for targeting, or A&M, I think, was targeted and the opponent doesn't get called. And I know every fan base can say the same thing, right? If you watch every snap of football for a specific team throughout the season, there's going to be countless examples of, why did we get flagged for targeting here? And then why didn't they get flagged for targeting there? So it's a mess, but I would say, as you brought up, it's subjective. So, like, pass interference is another call where, man, sometimes it doesn't go your way. And that might just be the nature of the beast. But on the penalization aspect of it, I think this, to me, is a no-brainer. This is kind of one of those, what do they say in politics, like the 80-20 issue, right? Where it's like, hey, this is kind of a layup. Most people are on board with this. Let's just go ahead and get this done. This new rule, or updated rule, that the NCAA is going to put in place is an 80-20, probably 99-1 issue. But with you, I don't think it went far enough, because if you get flagged in the first half, well, you still sit out the second half. And that's just too harsh to me. I'm with you, whether it's a quarter or a series, or even we've discussed, and I've heard a lot of people discuss this, maybe it's a 15-yard personal foul for your first offense. That's it. It's treated like any other personal foul, right? If you get unnecessary roughness, you're not kicked out of the game and then done, it's a 15-yard penalty. In your second one, you're kicked out, right? So maybe there's, again, I don't think that would happen because of the litigation that would ensue, presumably. At least that's what the NCAA is trying to protect themselves from. But that to me would be a better system, whether it's a series, a quarter, or, hey, you get one strike, 15-yard penalty, second strike, you're done, because it's way too harsh, especially with the split-second nature of these. And you see it again. You see examples of it every Saturday in the fall where a guy catches a pass and sees the defender bearing down on him and ducks his head. And in that less than half a second, there's a head-to-head collision. And it's like, well, the guy was already, the defender was already
he was going
in position.
Yeah.
He was hitting the guy no matter what. And the guy saw him and ducked. And it's like, if he didn't see him, he cracks him in the chest, but he saw him and he winces. So it's one of those things that, I think it's too penal still, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. So I'm glad to see a small step in the right direction on this front. And I think our friend, Huseman brings up a good point that centralized replay would help because conferences have different protocols. Conferences have different replay booths. Conferences have different, a lot of different things going on. And so if you're watching an SEC game or a Big Ten game, their interpretation might be different because they have totally different people sitting in totally different places deciding what the outcome is.
Well, and that was what I was going to say. I saw Mike's comment, and that's just a whole nother can of worms that we can open, right? Every one of these conferences has their own referees, got their own replay. Like, we want to have centralized. I think we should just go all the way. Let's have, NCAA. It's got to be refs who are from the NCAA. We have a centralized reffing system that everybody, abides by NCAA rules. And then we've got a centralized replay system. And I mean, even that would eliminate some of the stuff that we talk about with, inter-conference games, right? Okay, if it's an away game, then it's going to be the opposite conferences. The opposite conference is going to be the ones with the refs and like bowl games and all that stuff. And I mean, look at that. I think that made sense in a certain era, but we don't have to go too far down this rabbit hole. But in this era of college football, it kind of doesn't make sense when all of these, conferences and everything are making stupid amounts of money, right, off of all these TV contracts. This is a billions business, right? So like, the billions that is made by this sport. How can the conferences not come together and say, all right, we will put X amount into this pot, and it is specifically each and every year for a centralized replay system, refs, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
that would be a great chat for tomorrow night, Mike. He's talking SEC After Dark for tomorrow night. We could dive deeper into that. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, moving on to the other two pieces of, business or items worth noting coming from the NCAA this week. So the first one we'll start with was, and this is, more where the NCAA maybe potentially is trying to grow some teeth here, but they came out with two statements, I suppose. The first of which was a memo sent to member institutions claiming that the NCAA plans to, quote, aggressively pursue tampering violators and impose significant penalties. So my interpretation of this and what I kind of put in the newsletter this morning was, I support this. I like this initiative. I will believe it when I see it, because this is an issue that people have been screaming from the rooftops for years about since the transfer portal became what it is back in, I think, 2020, 2021. I don't remember the exact, date, but they've been turning a blind eye to it for years. And so now all of a sudden they care enough to, quote, aggressively pursue it and enforce strict penalties. Like, I just don't know that I see that coming to fruition. But what is your read on this memo? Is it something to just kind of scare people, or do you think there is some actual teeth behind it and they will start dropping the hammer on people?
I mean, I hope they do. I hope they do. Right? Like, I think all of us who are college football fans, who have been college football fans for a long time, we're seeing this sport change constantly. It's like sand beneath our feet, morph into something that isn't really what we fell in love with. Now, there's tons of us diehards who pretty much, however the sport changes, probably not going to lose me. But with what has been happening with tampering and NIL and everything that has come down the pipeline in the last 5-8 years, I think it's really soured a lot of people. And there was always kind of some tampering going on, but now with the portal and money involved and all, okay, we get it. Like, there was money involved before, but not the amounts of money that we see now, and the transfer portal and all that stuff. The tampering is just absolutely out of control and completely against the rules, and everyone knows it. But everyone's looking across the table with their guns up, except for Dabo Swinney. He just starts firing away, just starts shooting. But I'm just kind of sick of it. If you're a fan, like, people are sick of it, and you can't really follow the rosters. Like, there's so many kids transferring, like, it's gotten absurd. So I'm glad that the NCAA is trying to do something about it. Now, I'm glad they're doing something about it. Do I really think that this is going to do anything about it? Honestly, no. I don't think it is. I don't think the NCAA has teeth. They have not had teeth for years and years and years now. And so why would I believe that they have teeth now? To your point, what you wrote in the newsletter this morning, I'll believe it when I see it. I will believe it when I see it. Ole Miss, they pretty much have a cut and dry case. And I know Ole Miss fans, I get it. Maybe Dabo doesn't have the text messages. If he doesn't have the text messages, maybe it's not as cut and dry as it looks. But, if this is true, if you are really going to police it, let's make an example of somebody. Who are they going to make an example of? And there's a whole cast of characters. I mean, literally, like, throw a dart and you can hit a program and a coach who has, seriously been tampering. So I'm interested to see what the NCAA does here. I'll believe it when I see it, like you said. And yeah, we'll just see what happens here. But
yeah. I mean, that's kind of my thing. Was you bring up the Ole Miss and Clemson situation, and I looked at that, and I went back and I looked at the dates. That was over a month ago. Like I said, maybe I'm naive here, but if you're serious about this, like you said, that seems like a pretty cut and dry case. And where's the punishment, right? Again, is it coming? Like, I'm sure Dabo's wondering that, because whatever he presented to the NCAA, he felt like he had a pretty cut and dry case. The way he laid it out, it seems very cut and dry. Again, what evidence he actually has, I don't know. But how about another example of Darian Mensah to Miami, right? Like, that happened about a month ago now. Like, again, if you're serious about this, how much time do you need to enforce it in specific instances where it's 99% clear what went down? And as you brought up, throw a dart. There's a lot of these instances, right? If they're serious about it, the evidence is right there. It's all over the place. There's, every program for the most part is doing it. And yeah, Mike brings up a good example again, right? So yeah, LSU or Oklahoma State, where you're clearly getting players to follow you to a new school. It's like, I want to believe that they're serious about this. But again,
Auburn.
Auburn, there are examples all over the place that show, and to not to defend the NCAA, but to give them the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe they are about to drop some of these, and they wanted to send this memo ahead of time so that people were, quote unquote, forewarned that they're coming. But if they don't come in the next, let's say, month or two, I'm just going to assume it's not happening, because it doesn't need to take 6 months when this stuff has obviously been going on. And if they're serious about it, we should start seeing stuff soon. And I don't know, they obviously didn't get into specifics around punishments. They just said significant penalties. So don't know what that means. Maybe it's a suspension for coaches. Maybe it's harsher. But to me, anything would be good. And that goes, for A&M too, right? Like, I have no idea if Mike Elko has been tampering or whatever. He probably has. And if so, like, I have no problem as long as the enforcement is, even across the board, then great. Like, slap everybody on the wrist, because I don't like this and I want it to be done and out of the sport, as do the coaches. So start penalizing people and it should significantly decrease. I'm just not so sure they're actually going to do it.
Well, yeah. And what are the penalties? And also, who cares? Okay. So, like, one of the NCAA's penalties back in the day, right, was taking away scholarships, right? Okay, well, you can't have X amount of scholarships. Who pays those scholarships? The schools. The schools pay those scholarships. Who's to say that an SEC school, right? Let's just use, like, boom, LSU as an example, right? Pick them out of a hat. Well, who's to say that the NCAA says, you've been tampering, you lose 25 scholarships for the next 2 years. Lane Kiffin's going to be suspended for 2 games, and you also, are losing X amount of revenue, right, based on whatever NCAA is giving to you, right? No, you can't go to a bowl game for 2 years, whatever, right? F you. Who says I can't? Who says I can't? And Lane Kiffin walks up to Greg Sankey's office and he says, "Hey, man, we need to fight this. This is all BS. We're the SEC. Screw the NCAA. These guys are losers, right? We don't care." And we have seen this. There is precedent for this when the Big Ten went to bat for Michigan very recently. Right? The Big Ten is fighting the NCAA on behalf of Michigan and saying, like, we basically know they cheated, but, like, there are cheaters. Okay. So screw you guys. Right.
Yeah.
So, like, who cares? Like, what is the NCAA actually going to do? And I think whenever something like this happens, if they do come down with some sort of punishment, they're going to be, one of these schools is basically just going to say, you and what army? I mean, you went on the 80-20 politics issue right earlier, just talking about, like, in general, what that looks like for this context. Well, let's put, like, a little bit of another political thing out here. In general, right, people have wondered, like, okay, no matter who the president is or whatever, right, what happens when they just decide to ignore a Supreme Court order? Like, what happens then? It's like, well, the Supreme Court, like, you and what army? Like, how's the Supreme Court actually going to enforce this? The same thing with the NCAA here. How is the NCAA actually going to enforce this when the schools are the ones making all the money? The schools are the ones, who give out the scholarship money. And who's to say that the SEC wouldn't say, yeah, screw you, NCAA. We're siding with Lane Kiffin. We're siding with John Summerall, whoever it is who's in trouble, and going up against the NCAA. So I could see something we've already been seeing, which is the fracture that has started between the NCAA and some of these other conferences, particularly the SEC, the one that we cover, and the Big Ten, and going a step further where, like, okay, the hammer punishment comes down for tampering or whatever, and it actually only accelerates the downfall of the NCAA because you have the conferences that just say, screw you. We're sick of this. We're done with you. You have no teeth. You have no standing. And we're going to create something completely new.
Yeah. And to take this one step further on the scholarship front, let's say they do, limit scholarships. Well, this isn't 2008 anymore. No. There's NIL. So what's to stop a school from saying, okay, hey, guys, 20 guys on my roster, we don't have a scholarship to offer you, but here's $100,000. That more than covers the cost of your scholarship. So, like, we'll give you $100,000 in NIL money, and unfortunately, $25,000 of that's got to go to your tuition and your room and board and blah blah blah. Who cares? Yeah, it's just like, all right, it's like 18-year-old doesn't care. I mean, great, cool. So I got 75 grand left over. Sweet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's on the low end, right? Like that's like a third string corner is what it seems like at this point. And I know that's not necessarily true, but like the amount of money being thrown around is crazy for starters and for, second string guys who could become a starter, right? Like, it's going to be way more than any scholarship is worth for these guys. So yeah, you and what Army, come and take it is I think what some of these schools are going to do if the NCAA does it. So I think it's kind of some bluffing, and like, hey, watch it. Like we're cracking down, and everybody's like, yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the next one can basically, we could probably echo a lot of what we just said, but it still bears mentioning. So this one is about a new, it's a new term to me at least, but the blind transfer term. Have you heard that? Right. So the spring portal window no longer exists, meaning as of now, post January transfer portal window, rosters should be set, barring super late additions of guys that did enter in January, but then never landed anywhere, but were in the portal during that window. The NCAA is coming out and considering a new proposal. So it's not in effect yet by any stretch of the imagination, but they're considering a proposal with strict punishments for schools that accept these blind transfers. And if you're not, online 24/7, a blind transfer, again, since there's no spring portal, people are calling blind transfers what they assume will happen come end of spring practice, which is guys will just unenroll from their current school, enroll at another school, and voila, they're on the team without ever actually entering the transfer portal and filing any sort of transfer paperwork. They'll just unenroll and re-enroll where they want to go. So that's a blind transfer that, people are expecting to happen and certainly will. So the NCAA is considering this proposal that would punish schools involved in this, including a 6-game suspension of a coach, 20% reduction in football budget, and then a reduction in roster spots. So again, I like this premise. Great. I don't want people just unenrolling and enrolling wherever they want, without filing any sort of paperwork or without any guardrails. But is this something the NCAA can enforce?
We shall see. So there have been, it goes back to what I just said, right? Like you and what Army, right? Like, enforce my roster spots. Can you? Like, how are you going to enforce that? We don't care. In fact, right now, the roster limit is like what, like near 100 or something, or like 80 or 100.
Yeah,
or something.
They bumped it up. It was used to be 85. Now I think it's 105 or something.
Yeah, we're over 100. I think you're right. So, I don't even know who's to say like you couldn't have a practice squad. Like you could do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like if I was a Nick Saban or somebody, I'd just be like, yeah, I think I'm going to have like 120 spots. Like sue me, bring it on.
Yeah.
And maybe you do get a little bit of kind of like self-policing there with others, right? It's like, okay, well, we're going to have rosters of 300 kids pretty quickly if no one else, everybody else kind of like just. So maybe that's not realistic, but I think we're going to find out very quickly, because I think the first thing that's going to happen is this is going to happen. Right. Like we talked about this on last week's show. I foreshadowed this. I've heard others that have been kind of like putting this out into the ether. And now it got to the point where it got enough noise that it caught the attention of the NCAA, which is why they, are saying this now. Like this is not happening, against the rules, massive penalties for this if you do it. But again, as you laid out, can they enforce it? And I think we'll find out quickly, because I think the first kid who does this, which it will happen, somebody's going to try it, is you're going to get the NCAA who comes down hard, and then you're going to get a lawsuit. Boom, just like that. So what happens with the judge? And you might get multiple, because you might get a lawsuit. These lawyers are going to try and file it in favorable places, and what? So like,
yeah,
there could be multiple things moving, continuously, quickly at the same time. But we've recently seen surprisingly a little bit, that not all judges have been very friendly to the NCAA for about 15 years now. But recently we've seen a couple judges who were favorable, right? I mean, back-to-back cases, we had Trinidad Chambliss and Joey Aguilar. Neither, one, it was favorable to Trinidad Chambliss, not necessarily favorable to the NCAA, but the right decision. And then the opposite was favorable to the NCAA with Joey Aguilar. So you have seen judges who have been making the right decisions if it wasn't necessarily not articulating this well, but basically, the judges have seemingly made correct decisions, but been willing to at least kind of hear out the NCAA's position on this, particularly in the Aguilar case, right? It's like a couple of years ago, I think the NCAA probably would have just thrown their hands up and been like, I don't know, man, play however long you want, but now they're fighting back a little bit, and they won in that case, and they were correct, in my opinion, right? So with this, it'll be interesting to see what the judges decide on this, if they side with the NCAA, because if they do side with the NCAA, as they did in the Aguilar case, then that gives the NCAA a little teeth, a little momentum, right? Any one of these court cases that they win, it just builds for them again and gives them a case to say, like, we're still a legitimate organization. We can enforce some rules, right? And that would shut it down immediately if a judge or two rules that these kids are not allowed to do this. There are guardrails, and this your school has signed over that they are part of the NCAA, which means that you have to abide by their rules, right? So anyway, we'll see. It could just go back to everything we always talk about, right? The NCAA probably needs an antitrust exemption if that's what we're going to do. Otherwise, we probably need congressional intervention, for something else anyway. So we'll see.
Yeah. One more point I did want to shout out Mike once more. I think this is a good point, because even if, like, let's just say that they're able to enforce and they're able to get a favorable ruling on a coach's suspension. Fine, dandy, great. However, reducing a budget nowadays, what does that even mean? It's like there's so much money flying around. Yeah. Schools are already going way over the budget that the NCAA has set. So if you tell a school, hey, we're reducing your budget by 20%, they just say, okay, well, yeah, like exactly what Mike said. Well, we're just going to get this under the table and we just won't report it, because why would we?
Well, and we might even report it. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, or we're going to funnel it through some other means, right? Like the first thing I'm doing is calling Jimmy Car Dealer down the street and saying, I'm sorry, but we need you to, double your contribution, or you and 3 of our biggest donors, we need you to, band together to double your contribution to cover this, because the NCAA is coming after us, and we're going to just, put it into some dark fund under the athletic department that's where we're going to pull from. It's like, come on.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll obviously we'll keep an eye on these things. Because again, I think all of which I support. I think they're good developments. I'm hesitant to make any, set in stone proclamations that change is on the horizon, because until I see it, I remain pretty skeptical about the efficacy of any of these proposed, rulings from the NCAA. So we'll see on that. Now, let's move on. We've given the NCAA 30 minutes of our time tonight, which is crazy, but it is the middle of the off season and the beginning of March. But I wanted to touch on the 24 team playoff format. So obviously, for the record, I think we've been on record saying this. Neither you or I are on board with this. I think we're happy at 12. Personally, I think 8 maybe would have been the sweet spot, but obviously we're well beyond that, and we're not going back. But this 24-team format has been mostly peddled by the Big Ten as of late. Sankey himself has been very anti the 24-team format and has been standing up to Petiti in the Big Ten about it. However, Heupel recently came out in, as I said, an interview with Chris Lowe in favor of the 24-team format. Kirby also made some comments, seeming like he was warm to the idea. And it's no coincidence that this comes on the heels of the SEC adopting the 9th conference game. So you have a situation here now where I side with Sankey. I think Sankey, for all the stuff that he's done, love the guy or hate the guy, I think generally speaking, he's done a decent job, decent, keyword here, of trying to look out for the betterment of the sport. Obviously, the SEC is his main priority, and something like poaching Texas and Oklahoma fits into that, where that does not benefit the sport. It benefits the SEC. He made that decision. Kind of a no-brainer. We don't have to rehash that. But generally speaking, I like a lot of what he has to say about the overall sport. But he now has a situation where his coaches are undermining him because they're looking out for number one, and they see a 9th conference game. They see more losses coming, and they say, we need more spots because our fans expect college football playoff berths. And if we stay at 12, that's less spots for the SEC, because the committee has proven that they're looking at wins and losses. So what is your read on this from Heupel and Kirby kind of coming out and endorsing it? And I don't know, just we could get into a lot of different angles of this, but what are your initial thoughts?
Well, I feel like the Michael Scott meme, from The Office, where he's like, no, no,
yeah,
God, please, no.
Yeah.
I'm here. Boss man is pounding the table saying, please, God, no. We don't want to go to 24 teams. We don't want to go to 16 teams. I'm with you. 12 is too many already, but I'm fine. I've enjoyed the games of the last 2 years of the 12-team playoff. It has grown on me. And okay, right, we can stay pat at 12. 8 probably where I would have left it, or maybe 6 or something, buys, but 12 is where I want to stay. I don't want to go to 16. I don't want to go to 24. And I know Mike Hughesman right here, I'm on board. I want the FCA. He just wants Duke in there, okay? He just wants teams like Duke to get in to a 24-team playoff so that we have to watch them get blown out in the first round. And I do not want to watch Duke or anyone else or the Dukes from JMU get blown out in the first round. But all kidding aside, yeah, I'm against it. I want to stay at 12. I think it's best. I get it. We're probably going to 16, TV money, blah, 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 whatever. I am 100% with Josh Pate on this of less is more. It should be hard to get into the college football playoff. It should be hard to win a national title. All right. So, and okay, again, right now we are at 12. Do we think that every team currently, as it stands, who gets into the 12-team playoff has a legitimate shot to win a national championship? In the 2 years of the college football playoff, the obvious answer to that is no. There are multiple teams who have made the college football playoff each year who do not have a chance to win a national title. If we go to 24 teams, which is basically the top 25, right? Okay. It's the top 25 just goes to the college football playoff. I'm totally against that. I don't think that number 21 in the country has a legitimate shot to win a national title. They just don't. All right. So why do you get a participation trophy and you get to come into the college football playoff? You shouldn't be in the playoff. Get better next year. And then you can make the 12-team playoff. Okay. So I'm completely against it. I get what Josh Heupel's doing. He's trying to save face. He's trying to save skin and say, I'm a football coach. And now, we all know this, that coaches have been lobbying Greg Sankey. They lobby their commissioners all the time, their athletic directors and everybody, on whatever it is that they want to see happen, right? Whether it's rule changes or college football playoff or, whatever, recruiting. So here, that this has been happening through back channels before, right? Josh Heupel has been in contact with the SEC office to say, well, this is what we need. If we're going to go to 9 conference games and you're going to put up another potential loss on our schedule, well, then we need to expand the playoff, because at this point, everybody is seeing this. It's playoffs or bust, right, for these coaches at big schools. And if that means I have to make the playoff like every other year or every 3 years, depending on what school and how, accepting my fan base is, right? Well, they've been lobbying behind the scenes on this stuff. This is Josh Heupel now saying, "You're not hearing me. I'm going public," right? Like I'm speaking about this publicly, and I'm going to saber rattle, and I'm going to make a little bit of hay and see what happens, right? Maybe there's some public pressure now on my commissioner or from my fan base, right, to say we need to push for a 2014 playoff. Yeah, from a personal perspective, though, I'm completely against it. I don't want to go to 24 teams. Stick at 12. If we have to, go to 16, but 12 is where we should stay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so I'm just looking at the final college football playoff rankings from this year. So just to level set, the proposed 2014 format consists of there's no automatic qualifiers. So it's just the 23 highest ranked teams plus an automatic spot for a group of 6, whether they're in the top 23, wherever they fall, there's at least one guaranteed spot. But presumably you would have 24 Power 4 or 23 Power 4 teams and one group of 6 team included. So if we're looking at that this season, Iowa finished at number 23 at 8-4. And Mike, to bring up your point here you're making, have we left out teams who could have won a title? I think Notre Dame fits that bill this year, certainly. My contention with that is I'm not necessarily interested in teams whether they could or couldn't win a title. I'm interested in teams that earned the right to be there during the regular season, right? I think if we go to 24, we just totally lose the regular season because, again, you got a team like Iowa who, let's say Iowa could win a national title at 8-4. I don't think they could have, but let's just assume. I don't think they have the right to be there at 8-4, right? If that is, how good you are or your potential, great. We got 12 games in the regular season for you to show that. And if you go 8-4, I just don't think you have a right to compete at that level. So that's kind of my problem with it. And to be honest with you, like Texas, another good example, especially the way they were playing at the end of this year. Could they have maybe made a run? Sure. But they went 9-3. And I don't think that gives you the right to automatically have a seat at the table. And so that's where this loses me is, again, I'm less concerned with whether a team is capable or not, and I'm more concerned with whether they earned the right to be there, because I think there's a big difference there, right? I mean, there's plenty of teams. Like, I'll give you another example. We're on Stephen Willis's channel here. Ole Miss last year with Jackson Dart and all those guys. That was a talented team, man. They beat Georgia by 2 scores. Like, really good team that easily could have made a run in the playoff, but they went 9-3. They lost games they shouldn't have lost, and so they lost the right to be there. And I think, again, if you expand to 24, then you're just passing out mulligans. And these games in September, October, and November that used to matter no longer matter. And we've already seen that to some degree with the 12 team, but you double it and it becomes that much more, I mean, the loss in September to blank, who cares? Because if I'm Alabama, I got another 2 mulligans probably. If I'm Texas, if I'm, a big-time school, 9-3, I'm in. 8-4, good chance I'm in. So I got mulligans, for days, dude. I don't care if I lose a game. It's just it really renders the regular season, just pretty weak.
Well, and that's why so many of us have loved college football, is that the regular season did matter, right? Like the regular seasons, it was every game was a playoff game. You lose one game, you may not be able to go to the national title. Like that's how crazy it was, and that was kind of awesome. It's like there's no margin for error, right? Like that was an incredible era of college football. That's how it was for basically a century. Well, now there was a ton of worry, right? Okay, well, we go to the playoff, especially once we get to the 12 team. we're really diluting something that has made college football very unique. And I think now that we've seen two seasons of the college football playoff at 12, that was somewhat overblown. I'm with you. It has diluted it a little bit, but we still have awesome games, right? Like between Big Ten powers and SEC powers, and even the ACC this year was great, right? Like, so we've had great games. I think it still matters. But with you, if we go to 24, we totally dilute the regular season, and then it's just become basically be in the top 25. There's going to be the first team left out, who's going to cry just like everybody does, no matter what the format is. But the other part of this too is like, I don't want college football to become the NFL. I don't. And it becomes more like the NFL. Like we're kind of going there already. And like, I want it to go there a lot less, like I still want to keep a lot of the things that make college football. And if we go towards a 24, like the 24 playoff is not what I'm talking about. Like, the NFL playoff isn't even that big, right? But the NFL playoff is, you can lose 8 games. You can lose 8 games in a season and still make the NFL playoffs. Like the college football equivalent would be, you can lose 4 games, you can lose 5 games and still have a potential to make the playoff. And I am just not for that. And I get what you're saying here, Rick. Like I'm all for it. Anything extends the season. It's boring this time of year. I'm with you. I understand that. However, it's not going to extend to this point in the year anyway. Like they would figure out a way to fit it in to the window that we generally already have because of, it still is school. And so they have to, compress it into a certain time frame. And so unfortunately it wouldn't continue into now anyway.
I think it would eat into some games, right, potentially. I think you'd probably start earlier in August, and then you'd eliminate your conference title games, right. And basically all of December would be playoff stuff. And look, again, I think we're kind of splitting hairs here. I think this is probably likely to happen because of the money, but I and as you brought up, like, of course I'm going to watch these games. I'm going to be excited to watch them. I think it's just. Yeah, it just to me diminishes a little bit of what college football was, which was the regular season. And I think you bring up a good point about the 12 team, where in certain cases it has diminished the regular season to some degree. If you think of a team who's 10-0, or even A&M, right? A&M goes 11-0 and then loses to Texas. Well, ultimately that did not matter because they were safely and securely in. So that game didn't really hurt them other than seeding, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, it was a big deal to me and us and Aggies, but broadly speaking, didn't matter that much. But you also get games on the other side, right? Where it's, okay, we got, like the Big 12 title game, or these games that are being played for the right to compete in the playoff that are still between good teams that are 10-2, or they're 9-2, and this is the end of the season, and they need to win, and if they win, they're in, and if the other team loses, they're out. So it puts stakes on games as well. Whereas I think if we went to the 24 team, that whatever balance they've created with the 12, where some games are diminished but some are heightened, I think just totally flips, and it's a lot more diminished, and the games that are heightened are between teams that are 7-4 or 7-3, and it's like, okay, how jacked up am I to really see a 7-4 Arkansas squaring off against a 7-4 Missouri the last week of the season, with the winner having a pretty good chance to be ranked number 23. It's like, all right, these teams aren't that good. Like, I don't care as much as I would if it was a 9-2 team squaring off against a 10-1 team. And they're both ranked 12 and 14 in the playoffs. Like, that's a much better game with a lot more stakes than somebody who's scratching and clawing to get to number 23 in the rankings.
Yeah, to me, this is a solution in search of a problem. All right, we keep fixing things that aren't broken, and breaking things and continually breaking things that need to be fixed. All right. Like, we're focused on the wrong things. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And to me, this part of the sport isn't really broken. Like, sure, there are like things we could tweak to make it better or whatever. Yeah, maybe, and I get like bowl season has diminished a little bit and that's rough. But like, also, it really hasn't to some, go look at the Pop-Tarts Bowl ratings. Okay. 9 million or something watched it. Like 7 or 8 million people. I just watched Steve Sarkisian's press conference the other day. Like 7 or 8 million people watched the bowl game, Texas's bowl game this year. Like, why are we breaking this again? Why would we expand this when it is obviously working based on the ratings, based on the interest? It's growing the game. It's growing the fans. Like, what? It ain't broke. What are we trying to fix? There are other things in this sport that are very broken. We talked about a lot of them tonight. Let's go fix those things. Maybe let's just like leave this for a minute and let this grow. It's gonna make more money. It's still gonna make plenty of money, I guarantee you. But we don't need to fix something that isn't broken. This part of the sport is really not the thing that's broken. There are a lot of other things that are broken that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and Mike agrees here too. I wanted to just flash that up. We're not totally at odds here, but also it's like we haven't even given the 12-team playoff a chance to be broken, right? I mean, it's in its infancy.
Literally, yes.
So, yeah, maybe. I mean, like here's a scenario where I could maybe see even myself getting on board with this, right? We talked a lot this year, or maybe not us, but I heard a lot of this talk this year, and as evidenced by Indiana winning the title and breaking the blue chip ratio, that the talent is spreading out. There are more teams that are capable now of actually making a run and winning a title than there were in the BCS era, certainly, and then following that in the 14 because of transfer portal, NIL. The talent is dispersing. So in 5 or 10 years, if we do get to a point where we're really leaving good teams out, that despite their record, maybe, have possibly earned the right because they have, I don't know, 8 guys, 10 guys that are going to go to the combine and get drafted. Then I could maybe see that scenario, right? Where it's like, hey, these teams are, this team lost. Yeah, they're 8-4 or they're 9-3, but they lost, by a combined 7 points in the 3 losses, and they're a really good team, and they've beaten some good teams. Then I could maybe see it, right? But it's like we have to get to that point. We have to let the 12-team playoff live and play itself out. And if after however long you want to say, if after that, people decide that there's a better system, I'd at least be open to hearing the argument. But as it stands now, like you said, it's like it's not broken. We've barely done it. What? why are we all of a sudden trying to double this when we've only done it 2 years?
Exactly. And the only thing that I think might change my tune is when Notre Dame gets their first unwarranted auto bid into the 12-team playoff. And that might change my tune as to something is broken with the 12-team playoff. But it's only that one little thing that Notre Dame gets their own special carve out, right? But everything else about this is not broken right now. We need to let it breathe. I'm against 24 teams.
Yeah, well, that Notre Dame thing is going to happen. I mean, they'll probably be good enough to just earn it straight up next year. But they're in next year. I mean, this is not happening again, and they have a good team, and their schedule's cake. Like 2026, Notre Dame's in the 12 team. Whether they go
Miami, basically.
Yeah, so whether they go 11-1, 12-0, and it's no question, or whether they go 10-2 again, it's happening immediately. The Notre Dame clause.
Yeah, there literally already is one written in. It's Notre Dame for next year. So Notre Dame will be in the college football playoff. Don't even think you heard it here first, but just pencil them in, put them in ink. Put them in pen. They're in the college football playoff next year, 26.
Yeah, they are. All right. Well, let's transition here to our last topic. Not going to spend a ton of time on this because you and I haven't been grinding on the hardwood and watching a ton of SEC hoops. But with the SEC tournament starting next week, next Wednesday, and this being the last. I think there's one game tonight, and then there's a whole slew on Saturday. But that's the last day of the regular season. It's at least worth touching on heading into the SEC tournament. Florida is on an absolute tear. They've won 10 games in a row, all in conference, and are now up to number 5. So they're really rolling and look like a legitimate threat again in March. Behind them, Bama and Arkansas are still playing some pretty good ball. Tennessee as well are the other teams. 11-6, 11-5, 12-5 that I think are a threat to win the SEC tournament, let's say. But in terms of the NCAA tournament, Lenardi still has 10 teams currently making the tournament. So the top 10 teams in the SEC standings right now, he's got them all getting in. So that's Florida, Kentucky, Texas A&M, Bama, Arkansas, Georgia, Mizzou, Texas, Vandy, and Tennessee. Auburn, which I'm even surprised they're even on the bubble, is in his first 4 out. So should be a fun SEC tournament, should be a fun March with a bunch of schools representing. I haven't been watching a ton of basketball, but kind of what we've been talking about, like I do think that at least compared to last year, the SEC's not quite as good. So I don't know how many teams are really going to make a deep run perhaps in March, but it should be fun. I know Kentucky wants to fire Mark Pope, but they're at least comfortably in the tournament. So maybe he makes a run and they're happy with him. But it seems like, it's been consistent over the last couple of weeks. So barring something crazy, it seems like the SEC is going to get 10 teams in. Yeah,
it's surprising. I'm going to start keying in on SEC basketball and as we head into tournament time here. Haven't been able to watch as much basketball this year as I would have liked, but I'm excited. If we get 10 teams in from the SEC, man, that's great. It is a little surprising because the as we've talked about in shows in the past couple of weeks, that the SEC had maybe the best basketball year in the conference's history last year. And I think how many teams did we get in last year? I think it was 10.
Oh, it was over 10. I want to say
13?
it was like 12 or 13. I think it was a record. Yeah, it was
right.
a ton.
I think it was 13. I think you're right. We have to go double check that. But
yeah.
So even last year was a historic year for the SEC. This year, the SEC obviously just is not as strong. Even like Kentucky's a 6 seed at 19-10, and like you said, Kentucky fans are like ready to fire Mark Pope. And this shows you how little I've been paying attention, but I saw Kentucky's record and I see all the talk on social media. I'm still scrolling to keep us updated for the newsletter. And I just kind of figured Kentucky's like in jeopardy missing the tournament. And like, Lenardi has them as a 6 seed. Like, yeah, I know that's not Kentucky basketball. Like, you're supposed to be a 1 seed, but like, they're a 6 seed. So that also tells me that, around the country, that it's kind of a down year. The ACC is looking at 8 teams, the Big Ten and the SEC tied for 10. With a downish year for the SEC, still getting 10 teams in is pretty daggum good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
if that happens, again, Lenardi, but
yeah, right. We'll see. But he's usually pretty accurate.
No, he is.
So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll see. Only other thing I wanted to mention before we get to our Leach Coach of the Week, and sorry, LSU fans, I have to bring this up, but LSU baseball lost last night Monday night to Northeastern. So I don't know what's going on. Come on. Yeah. They also lost to McNeese earlier this year, so off to a bit of a rocky start. In Baton Rouge, defending their title. But we'll get more into baseball. I just had to give LSU fans a little shot there. But we'll get more into baseball when conference play starts, and we actually have some good matchups. But right now, it's mostly cupcakes, and LSU just stumbled a little bit on Monday night. But let's get to the Mike Leach Coach of the Week. So, as y'all know, we do this every week. This is an homage to Mike Leach. Rest in peace. And just the, passion, fun, lightheartedness that he brought to college football, as well as passion. And so we want to honor him every week with somebody who represents that. Slim pickings in the off season because we don't have, press conferences or in-game reactions from coaches to pick apart and honor. But you had a good one this week, so I'll let you intro this one.
Yeah. So this week, this was an obvious one. Rest in peace to another legend. Now, this man was much like Coach Coach Mike Leach, in the sense that great sense of humor, great storyteller. Always right there with a quip. He was a stalwart and a staple on TV for a long time after his coaching career. That would be Coach Lou Holtz. He is the Mike Leach Coach of the Week. There's a ton of video that I could have, found and chosen for this, of just some of the back and forth that he had with Mark May on College Football Final, for many years, with the jury and the trial that he would do.
Final verdict.
The final verdict. Thank you. Yeah, with Reese Davis. There were tons of great clips that were circulating from that on social media. But I chose one of these. He spoke in front of the Texas Longhorns years ago, just kind of giving them a motivational speech. And he pulled out an old trick out of the hat. So here is Coach Lou Holtz.
Like any other newspaper, you have front page for people who want to read the news. You have the comic for people who can't read. And you have the editorial page for people who can't think. But you can't let people tear you up. You can't let people destroy you. You can't let people say you aren't going to be great. Don't ever let anybody tell you you can't do something. My personal belief is there isn't any obstacle that's going to keep me from being successful. Difficult, you're doggone right. That's why so few people achieve success. Don't let people tear you up. Don't let people tear you down. Don't let people cause you to lose the faith and confidence you have in yourself. Because if you really have a strong faith and a strong belief, Somebody said, how'd I do that? Perfectly, I thought.
Man, I love Coach Holtz. I'm going to miss him. He was a funny man. Not only was he a coach, but as you saw in that clip, he was also a magician.
Correct. Yeah, I think growing up, and I won't even attempt it right now, especially as we honor his life, but growing up, you, me, and basically all of our friends had our own Lou Holtz impersonations because we all watched him all the time on ESPN, and we all loved the way he talked, and we all thought we could impersonate Lou Holtz. So yeah, he was definitely just a big figure of our childhood, and helped us fall in love with college football. So shout out to him, and prayers to his family. Dealing with the loss. I know he went into hospice a couple weeks ago, so expected. He was of course elderly, but really, really sad to see him, pass on and no longer be with us, because he was great. And he was, despite not even being on ESPN anymore, he would pop up now and again. I mean, there's the famous Ryan Day clip from a couple years ago where Lou Holtz said that Ohio State wasn't tough and they were wimps or whatever. And Ryan Day was.
I want to know where Lou Holtz is right now.
Yeah, Ryan Day was ready to fight him. So he was still around. He was still, like you said, he was a big time figure in the sport, and we'll miss him greatly.
SEC ties too. Arkansas head coach, I think from was like 77 to 83, and also coached at South Carolina too. So
that's right. Spurs up.
Yeah, many SEC ties for Coach Holtz. We will miss him dearly. So rest in peace to Coach Holtz. A life well lived, beloved by many, and many across college football. So a legend for sure.
Absolutely. And I know Notre Dame has a lot of passionate fans out there. nobody was as passionate about Notre Dame as Lou Holtz. I mean, that guy, again, God love him.
Yeah.
The stuff that he would say about Notre Dame was the most biased, unbelievably, hyped up stuff. And I loved it. I ate it up because I just knew it's like, man, he can't help himself.
He owned it.
Yeah.
He would own it. Like, yeah. And, one of the great things too about Coach Holtz was a man of faith, which I really respected about him. Loved it. He would talk about it openly. He would talk about it with anybody. But he was also self-aware. And, so many people nowadays have a huge ego, and especially in that profession, right? Like, got a big ego. It can be very easy to get caught up in your own world of like, me, I'm the greatest. I'm this and that. And Coach Holtz, the last coach to win a national title at the University of Notre Dame, 1988, Tim Brown. He was never like that. Coach Holtz was a very humble man, who connected with a ton of people. He was all about people, right? And connection and helping people, which I always really admired about him. And especially he would have people, you talked about our friends who we had a Lou Holtz impression. It was out of endearment. We absolutely loved Lou Holtz, but he has been with people who have impersonated him to his face over the years, right? With the Lou Holtz lisp. And he just laughs it off. He thinks it's funny. He doesn't get a big head about it. He doesn't get angry about it. He just laughs. Oh, that's a pretty good impression, like,
yeah,
you did a pretty good Lou. And, that ESPN interview where he did call out Ryan Day and Ohio State soft a couple years ago. He was with a guy from the Pat McAfee show who was impersonating him to his face, with doing his own Lou Holtz impression. And he was a great sport about it. So, we will dearly miss Coach Holtz, and I will look forward to always seeing the clips of him pop up from the final verdict and from his many appearances on television.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's close out the show with our final segment, the Biscuit of the Week. We also do this one every week. We are Biscuits and SEC, meaning we love SEC football and biscuits and Southern food and Southern culture. So we like to shout out every week a specific biscuit. Our friend Rick sends us a lot. We've got one in the hopper from him. Thank you for sending that, Rick. Like I said, we'll be sure to feature that next week. But if you're interested in having your biscuit or your local restaurant's biscuit featured, just shoot us a DM, an email. You can find us on social media or just reach out, contact@biscuitsandsec.com. This one's a little out of left field. I honestly love this so much that I couldn't not feature it. And I did say in the newsletter, generally, I'm not a fan of AI, and rest assured, our newsletter is written by a human being. But to me, this is what AI was made for, because this is a genius idea that obviously is incredibly fake and would never happen, but also kind of makes all the sense in the world. This guy on X at Mike Bales posted a picture of a Waffle House houseboat, and said that Waffle House has announced plans to bring floating restaurant locations to lakes across the Southeast, serving boaters, anglers, and waterfront communities. The concept will feature the classic menu and 24/7 service on floating platforms accessible by boat. With initial sites planned in Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and the Carolinas. I think this is just pure genius. If it were ever to be possibly true, would be the greatest restaurant establishment ever known to man, in my opinion.
Oh, without a doubt. Can you imagine? Just picture this day for a second. All right. You go to your lake house, or you rent a lake house. Maybe you're on Lake Okeechobee or something in Florida, and you wake up and it's a wonderful, lazy Saturday morning, and you just kind of look over at your wife and maybe your kids. You're like, what sounds great right now? Waffle House. And you know where a Waffle House is? In the middle of Lake Okeechobee. Let's go get on the boat and let's go dart straight out, make some waves. We'll get through the no wake zone and we'll hit the Waffle House. And then as soon as we're done, and we're feeling all fat and happy, like maybe we can catch dinner on our way home and we can throw a few lures right down by the dock of the of the Waffle House, pull out a couple of fish and bring them home for tonight's catch. Tonight we will be having some bass. So anyway, yeah, I think that is a funny concept, and man, that I think that would go crazy. Waffle House stock through the roof.
Absolutely. And there was a couple comments too on this post that were saying, imagine the fights at the floating Waffle Houses. It's 2 a.m. at the floating Waffle House, and somebody's getting thrown off the dock.
I mean, yeah, that's hilarious. You'd almost have to have boats would have to park, a little ways out, because you'd have to have a safety net around the dock so that people didn't drown from all the fights.
Yep.
But I mean, here's another concept for you. Could you imagine a blob being near one of these Waffle Houses and launching somebody, like launching your nephew over the Waffle House on the blob? And then you can just dry off and walk right in and have a waffle and an all-star special or whatever.
It's like a Southern fever dream.
That's right.
What a concept, go from ripping lips, catching fish to having an all-star special. Just pull the boat right out. So anyway, that was a slight diversion from the biscuit of the week, but I had to give that guy a shout out for an ingenious idea and creative use of AI to come up with the concept of floating Waffle Houses. Genius. But
definitely
that will do it. We even went over an hour tonight, despite it being in the throes of the off season. So we can always chop it up for at least an hour, usually more. But thank y'all for joining us. We will be back same time, same place next week. One more shout out to the newsletter. Please consider subscribing. It's free. Comes out every Wednesday during the off season, and then we ramp it up during the season for twice a week. And then, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe. If you're watching on socials, give us a follow. We do appreciate it. As I said, we'll be here every week throughout the offseason. So we don't take a break. We just keep chugging along here at Biscuits and SEC. So thank you all so much for joining. For Boss Man, I'm Hammer. We'll see y'all next week.
See y'all next week. Adios.